Hi, this little tutorial is for people who possibly just bought one of our bearded dragon or even blue tongue kits from us with our happy lizard kit and a tank. It doesn't matter which setup you got from us. This tutorial pretty much covers anyone who just bought a young bearded dragon or any of our accessories. So first thing, of course, is you've got to get your enclosure set up. This is a 90 by 45 by 45 square enclosure, which is the minimum size we recommend for any bearded dragon because of the rate at which they grow. So even though they're quite small and cute, when you buy them, they reach adult size very quickly, sometimes within 6 months. So this is the minimum size we recommend. So I'll demonstrate with this size tank. Doesn't matter which size, whether you've got a 4-footer, the care and the way of setting them up is exactly the same. So the first thing you do once your tank is together is you have some sort of substrate. Now at the moment we're actually using a product called Critter Crumble, which is a compressed coconut fibre. We tend to only use the fine one for young bearded dragons. Other things like gravel and stones, other sorts of barks are good when they're older, but when they're young they tend to eat them. So you just spread this out in the bottom of the enclosure and you just spread it out nice and even, have it all over the bottom of the tank there. This is really just to absorb their urine and faeces and give them something to run around on. So once you've got that spread out in there, the next most important thing then is to sort out your lighting. Now lighting can be a bit confusing for people. There are two very different types of lights. Now in this case we've got a heat lamp and a UV light, and in this case the UV light is actually a compact light. So what that means is that when you look at the actual bulb, rather than being a traditionally long fluorescent tube, this is a compressed fluorescent tube. This provides a light which is for vitamin intake. Very important for animals to have this globe long term. Okay, short term won't affect them, but long term they need this. It also keeps them active as well. But the one we're worried about right this minute is your heat lamp. So they're normally a spotlight of some kind. You'll often see them in red or blue. We tend to use the clear ones here. Red is good for when you have to heat them during the day and night. Clear is good when you're only heating during the day, and the black ones are really only good for heating at night. So then, to make this heat light or spotlight work, what you really need is either a light dome, similar to the one we've got here. Now in our basic setup or kits, we recommend 2 separate light fittings. This is a light dome in which the globe goes directly into and sits facing downwards. Now in the case of our setups, we prefer to have everything above the mesh in the enclosure. So if it's one of our tanks, we can assure you that the mesh in the top has been designed to withstand the heat. It's also been designed to allow the heat and UV to pass through. A lot of commercial enclosures have a very heavy gauge mesh which stops that. So if you didn't buy the tank from us, just check with us before you do this. So this sits on top and faces downwards. That way you have a great basking spot. At this time of year, which right now is very warm, we would use a very low wattage, say 70 watts. Now if I plug this in and switch this on, then you end up with a basking light. You do, if you got this switched on, you do. Alright, so you actually end up with a basking light. It helps if you actually screw the thing in and turn it on. Right. Globes, you're going to love them. Okay, this is actually a really good point, by the way. These globes are prone to blowing. It happens. They don't last forever. If your heat lamp does blow, don't panic, okay? Your animal won't drop dead on you. Without proper heat, they tend to slow down and stop eating, but they can go like that for a couple of days without any issues. Certainly when it's not the dead of winter. So if a globe does blow on you, your standard spotlight from any hardware store or supermarket is fine. The ones we sell here in the shop, a little bit different, but anything like that would do. So your heat light faces downwards at one end of the enclosure. That creates a warm end and a cool end. Now for this heat light to work, you really need something under the heat light. Now our setups or basic kits don't include a basking spot because you could use a house brick, you could use a Bessa block, you could use a real brick out of the garden or a real rock. Whatever you use, it just needs to hold and conduct the heat. In the case of this particular setup, I'm going to use one of these artificial rocks that we sell here in the shop. Put that right up under the heat light. There we go. So that's probably the most important thing about your setup. You now have a basking spot, particularly for bearded dragons to sit on, which is crucial. What you're looking at then is, what else comes in our setup is a thermometer. So many of you may have one of these. In the case of this thermometer, it has a small gauge which sits against the glass and a probe which you'll put right up under the heat light there. For bearded dragons, you're looking at 35 to 40 degrees under the heat light, not at this end. Okay, this is the cool end. Alright, now the second lighting you're dealing with is your UV light. That's this one here. So the UV light will go into a similar fitting to this normally. We'll screw into here and will actually sit on the other end of the enclosure like this. Okay? Now UV lights do a different thing altogether. When it's really hot in summer, you may have to turn the heat light off if the temperatures get too high. But the UV light can stay on all the time. But both of these lights, because they're clear, must go off at night. So at this time of year, while it's cool, just turn everything off. At night, sorry. While it's warm during the day, turn this one off. Okay, both of them. When winter comes, that's when you get a purple globe, which I haven't brought here as a demo. There is a purple night light, just imagine it. And that one is what you use at night time to keep the lizards warm while letting them sleep. Now some of you may have actually gone and got the setup which included these hoods. This is a Reptiles Inc original design hood. So sometimes people, rather than having individual light fittings, would prefer to have a complete hood. If you haven't seen one of these before and you've gone and bought a basic setup, you are welcome to bring these items back and replace it for a hood if you like. Now if you did decide to go with a hood, let's say you did, you've got three fittings here. You've got your heat light fitting. You've then got your UV fitting, which should go as close to the heat light as possible. You then have a night light fitting with the purple light. At this time of year, while the temperatures are around 15 to 20 degrees at night, don't worry about your purple light, okay? Once it gets below 15 at night, then you'd be using the purple one as well. So what you do is put your light fittings into that, and this hood just sits nice and neat straight over the top of the tank there like that, giving you a really nice, neat finish to your enclosure. All right. Now, to finish this setup off, what you have is a water bowl, which should go at the opposite end of your heating. Now, you can have a water bowl and you should have one in there, but with young dragons, you're going to need to mist them with water anyway because they're not very good at finding water bowls. All right. So this is your basic setup. It's very important that you get your heating sorted out, that you have your UV running during the day. And if you have any problems understanding any of this or any issues with this at all, just make sure you call the shop or email us and we'll be happy to go through that with you. There is more information required about keeping your dragon, including food and the calcium supplement that's included in our setups. But we'll actually list that in our care sheet on bearded dragons, which is on our website. So, so that's everything I wanted to show you with your basic setup. Thank you for that, and as I said to you, if you have any issues, make sure you send us an email to info@reptilesinc.com.au. Thank you.